Questions?
I thought it was a special win. We played I think, a really good football team, and coming out on top, I think, dictates a little bit about what our guys are all about. They prepared well all season. We've played fairly well at times. This is probably our best ball game in terms of putting it all together. Special teams was huge in the game. Won the field position battle by a fair margin. A lot of things contributed to that, as you guys know, but obviously Michael Farkas punting 7 times and putting 6 of them inside the red zone. If you look at his year, 45% of his punts that he's had all season long, I think it's 49 of them, 45% of them have been in the red zone with only 2 touchbacks, and so that's been huge. Our ends covered well, so they had 0 yards in return. We had 1 return for 19, so that's an improvement in that area. We did win, I thought, the kicking battle in terms of returns on kickoffs and covering of kickoffs. So special teams was good. We were 1 for 2 on field goals. They were 2 for 2. So in that respect, we lost that battle. But all in all, special teams wise, it was a big day for us, and we needed it. Defense, I thought, played well. I believe held them to their lowest total of the year. Gave up 430-some yards, maybe passing, 3 touchdowns, but controlled their ground game to some extent, which was really helpful. We were a pretty balanced football team on offense. We had the mid-200s on both, right at the mid-200s on both passing and rushing the football, so very balanced attack, and both teams had 3 touchdown passes thrown. So even though we threw a lot less, we were still very productive. We had 6 explosive plays of over 30 yards, would have been 7. Quentin had a 29-yard run, but that doesn't get counted. It's 30 or more. So it was 6 to their 2. And so that's what allowed us to, those things combined allowed us to come out on top in what was a really hard-fought, very good football game.
There was a big play early in their first drive. You talk about setting a tone, and they had to drop what could have been a touchdown pass on their first drive.
Mm-hmm.
There's an explosive ball club, and they like playing from ahead just like any other team. But
Mm-hmm.
was that a big play just from a standpoint of, all right, well, they dropped it, we'll just regather and get back to it?
Yeah. Any drop pass, any overthrown pass, which we had a couple, are big plays. Obviously, a game like this, you want to get out ahead. You want to take the lead, and we were never really fighting from behind, which was important in this game.
Coach, do you have any update on Greg Wyndham's status?
Yeah, some. It's not as serious as what was first thought. So there's a chance for him to recover fairly quickly.
Your approach is always one game at a time, but could you touch on what it means to your club to control its own destiny down the stretch? A lot of times, the last 2 or 3, 4 years, you need a loss here or there to get back into things, but this year it's pretty straightforward. You win the division.
Well, it is certainly a one game at a time approach that will continue with us. That's what's kind of got us here, and we don't want to really deviate from that. They do have a goal of getting to a MAC championship and winning it. probably every team that started out the season had that same goal. But you know, we're in a position where we're certainly not eliminated from that, and so we just got to keep playing. You know, we haven't won a game by more than 7 points in the MAC this year. You know, Kent beat Central on the road. We won on the road. Who else won on the road? Miami
Eastern.
won on the road at Eastern. I mean, you know, Buffalo handled Akron, who was really playing well up to this point. And so, you know, it only takes one game to derail you. And so, you know, we got to battle every game, and that'll be our approach. I think the kids have really been a great team in terms of responding and coming back to practice and wanting to practice well to play their best football when it comes time to kick off. So I don't expect that they'll deviate from that any.
Is that approach particularly important? We see this a lot around the country, you know, dealing with 18 to 22-year-old student athletes. After they have a very successful pat on the back type of victory, to make sure that there isn't a letdown, that there isn't too much of as John Gross said, drinking the poison of reading a lot of clippings and that. Is that important particularly this week after the Toledo game with the rest that you have to deal with? Yeah,
you know, there's certain things that we can point to help them, you know, zero in on what's at hand. And you know, you see signs of that at times from teams. I don't know that I've seen that this year from our team. You know, there's maybe been a few days here and there I've worried, but pretty much how they've accepted things and then moved on has been great. You know, they have not been a team that's dwelled on the losses that we've had. They've not been a team that's dwelled on the victories that we've had. You know, they've moved forward, and so I think it's a smart football team in that regard, and that enables you hopefully to play your best football game after game. Watching Buffalo on film, you know, I don't know what that kid ran, 250 plus yards, 280. Yeah, and that's not a small feat, and you know, you could see their sideline off on tape. You know, when big plays were made and on both sides of the ball, special teams. I mean, that sideline was excited. They are a team that's ready to play, and you know, despite the fact they've gotten off to not a great start, you know, you don't see any signs of that in their play on the field. You don't see any signs of that on the sideline, and so, you know, we'll have a football team that comes here to get a job done, and we're going to have to respond to that.
Coach, Dorian Brown has been outstanding these last stretch of games. Some at the beginning of the year doubted the running back group a little bit when people started to go down. How nice has it been seeing Dorian come back and now just playing so well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, injuries throughout the course of the season has hit us at that running back spot, and you know, I think Dorian is really showing now his ability, and I think it's because he's getting a lot of reps. You know, he's getting a lot of reps in practice because of health of backs. He's getting a ton of reps in games. And, you know, we have a really good group of running backs, and when you split those carries up, sometimes you don't see the real running back that these guys are. And when a guy gets a chance to get a number of carries and gets on a little bit of a roll, then you start to see what they're truly all about as a running back. And he's a tough runner. You know, he's powerful. He gets a lot of yards after contact, but he's got speed. And you know, I think he's hitting the hole much better now too. He's hugging things that he's supposed to hug and getting where he's supposed to get on the field with the timing of things, and then he's able to use his explosion and acceleration. So, you know, that's all been good.
Yeah, also, when you talk about the running backs, would you like prefer doing like a running back by committee splitting carries, or would you like prefer more featured back system where Dorian gets more carries, or another back gets the majority of carries?
Hmm. I personally like to give a really good running back a ton of carries. I'm not a committee guy, but when you have a lot of really good running backs, it's and they all have their pluses. You want those pluses to be able to be seen on the football field, and the only way you can see those is by putting guys in the game. And so when you have a ton of guys that are really good, now if you have one guy that just separates himself completely from the pack, then that's who you feed the ball to. And if it's a deal where it all comes down to how things are getting blocked up front, how quickly you can your linemen can adjust to the new schemes that they're showing you up front, so those backs have chances. Sometimes if you go by committee, the starting running back doesn't fare so well, because linemen are still picking up their defensive schemes and adjustments that have to be made. Then the next guy that comes in, they've got it all figured out up front, and he's the guy that can shine. And so things like that can work. So when you have a lot of really good running backs, you try to use them, and hopefully their strengths will show.
Coach, Poppy White had a great game against Toledo, almost like a resurgence from what we've seen early on. Hasn't been playing that much. Obviously, you always put an emphasis on getting Poppy the ball, but was that a bigger emphasis against Toledo?
Yeah, as we go through, you want to get Poppy the ball. We've found different ways to do that as a running back or receiver. He comes in motion, and that will continue to be a part of our offense. We've had a lot of really good receivers. Sebastian has shown to make spectacular catches, as well as other receivers. But we've gotten the ball to him a fair amount, and you want to continue to do that. You want to continue to give our running back. If Dorian's running like he was running in that game, you want to make sure he gets his fair share of carries, and so that's what you're after in your game plan. Sometimes they'll take a guy or two away with whatever they're doing, but if you have multiple guys that are able to be explosive football players for you, then that's difficult for the defense. And obviously, we have some guys like that, so we'll continue to try to get those guys their fair share of the touches.
Just got a question about being aggressive when you cross the opponent's 50. At Toledo, and it worked out for you. You punted several times inside their 35 or at the 35. Late in the game, you're trying to get you're trying to run out clock, and you decide to call the throw to Sebastian Smith. How do you go through when to be aggressive, when to maybe play it by the book or be more conservative? Could you take us through that thought process a little bit? Because you're at their 32. A lot of people say, go for it to kick the field goal. You guys punted. Late in the game, you're supposed to run the ball, and you throw it.
Yeah. So many things come into play I think on those decisions. It's not a just by the book decision. I think you have to have a feel for the game and how it's unfolding. You got to have a feel for the momentum. You got to know the other team. Early in the game, I did not want to give them field position. I thought field position was going to be critical to the outcome of the game, as well as turnovers. I would rather them have to go 85, 90 yards than have to go 55, 60, 65 yards. They put enough points on the board, as you can see throughout the course of the season, and in my mind, there's no sense helping them out with field position, and so that was the initial feeling going into the game. And we have a good punter, we have a good field goal kicker. Could you try what would be a fairly long field goal? we could have tried maybe one or two there, but I didn't think that field goals were necessarily going to win the game. They just had too much potential to score, and so going for it early. I just wanted to keep ourselves in the game and make sure in the fourth quarter that, hey, here we come, and so that's how I view things basically. And again, it's not a by the book kind of thing. I know there are those guys that once you cross the 50 or the opponent's 40, it's automatic. Well, to me, nothing's automatic in this in this game. That only comes from a lot of experience in failing on some play calling and doing fairly decent on some play calling throughout the course of my career.
And
Kind of
the
building off-
decision about the throw late in the game. That's kind of the other side of the coin, maybe a little more aggressive.
Yeah, we were moving the ball, and I felt, Tim was doing a very good job of calling plays. We had momentum. We were answering everything that they threw back at us and the scores that they made. So we needed to keep trying to put points on the board. We haven't won a game, like I said, in over 7 points, and so again a field goal there. I just didn't feel as comfortable and with going for the field goal. And there was a little wind. It wasn't ridiculous, but there was enough. It just made sense to me at that time, and I didn't even have to think hard on that one. Some I have to think hard on.
Coach, kind of building off of that, it looked like the play calling kind of throughout was a little more aggressive, a couple more deep balls. They ran the reverse to Poppy. So is that kind of something that you needed to do against Toledo, and is that something that you're going to do maybe moving forward as you kind of wind down the season?
Yeah, when you're playing, I consider them a special team. They very well could have 0 losses at this point. And so they're a special football team, and you're not going to beat them a traditional way. You're not going to beat them by us just lining up and running from tackle to tackle, or throwing 50 passes. You better have some complexity in what you're doing, and those types of plays, reverses. We ran 2 of them in the game actually. Both of them were successful. That second one it put us in position. I think we're on about the 5-yard line or so. If it wasn't for the penalty, could have put us in position to maybe be 18 points up. And so that's huge right there, right then. That's a big play. But you don't just do what you've been doing all year long against a team like Toledo is, and think you're just going to smash them. You better have some things that they haven't seen before, and so you work on those things pretty good during the week.
Quick couple thoughts about Buffalo. They're not doing real well in terms of pass,
Mhm.
or in terms of run defense. Their pass defense numbers are good. Is that because teams have been able to run the ball so effectively on them? What have you seen looking at them defensively?
Yeah, I think they defend the pass very well, and they're, no one's just lit them up in the passing game. So, obviously, if teams are running the ball effectively, there's 2 ways of looking at that. Teams running the ball effectively, that should set up the pass against them, and that hasn't been the case. And so you take it for what it is. They got good players back there. I think you look at their team; they're a young football team in terms of number of seniors that are playing, and so they're getting better and better as the season goes on. They're getting more and more confident in one another. They're playing as a team better than what they were earlier in the year, and that comes with experience as you go through a season.
Coach, after that, after that Toledo win, everybody's very excited, everybody's very, happy with the win and everything like that. But how do you kind of turn that into a positive, just so you don't overlook Buffalo, you try to remember that, you do have to play another game this Thursday?
Well, it's pretty easy for me and the coaches, I think. We've been through this kind of stuff before in our careers, and you just don't show up and win football games. It's got to go into preparation, and you've got to prepare the same every week. It's got to go into execution. You've got to execute well. If you hope to win a football game, you just can't show up and hope the other guy in your team does something spectacular so you can win a football game. Everybody's got to be ready to contribute and do their job. It comes back some to leadership on your team. I think we've got really good leadership on our football team, and it comes back to the makeup of your team. Some teams you have to browbeat to get them to understand that. Other teams understand that, hey, this is MAC football. You better show up. We better show up every week and play our best football, or we ain't going to get it done. And I think this team understands that. And there's a lot of challenges ahead for us.
Anything else, guys?
That was one game where I thought we played well offensively, defensively, special teams. So one game out of all of our games, that ain't setting the world on fire. So we've got a lot to do, a lot to get better at.
Any questions?
Quick question. You're in the thick of a division hunt. We try to get Joey Duckworth reps this week if Greg can't go, because that feeling about having a second quarterback ready, does that become a priority now?
Yeah, if Greg can't go and he's not practicing right yet, obviously Joey would be the number 2 guy to go in, so he's getting more reps, and he's practiced well so far. We'd expect that with his time here in the system and the reps that he's gotten over the years, that he would be able to go in and play very good football and help this team win. So we'll see how this all plays out.